welcome to the first Podcast Alliance of 2026. Who's excited? Because it's the start of the year. Woo! Who's just excited because, hey, it's another day that ends in Y and everything is right with you. So glad you could be here today. If you're catching this after the fact, we're so sorry you weren't able to make it, but there's so many things that we're going to be talking about today, including how to spotlight the speaker. There I am. So many things we're going to be talking about today in the Alliance. We have two really great speakers lined up. And as we get started, if you are attending live, what I want you to do right now is put your information in the chat, who you are, where you're from. If you have a podcast, I want you to be able to share that in the comments. And also, if you're a guest, share with us that you're a guest and you're looking to be on shows. Whatever it is, put that information in the chat. And you can also say where you are coming in from, and we'll be monitoring the chat as we go along today. And my chat is open, so there we go. So feel free to put that information in the chat as we go. So show of hands. I'm just going to put it on gallery view for one more quick sec here. Show of hands. Raise your hand if you have a podcast now. Congratulations! That doesn't always happen. Sometimes on calls like this, it's a couple of hands that go up, but it's great to see so many avid podcasters in the room today. Raise your hand if you are a guest or looking to be a more active guest on podcasts in 2026. Okay. So we have some podcasters want to be guests, some people who are not podcasters who want to be guests as well. Either way, I think you're in a really good place. One of the things that we've seen as we get started into 2026, and it's been going on for a while, but we're really seeing a surge in this, and that's the number of folks, whether you're a coach, whether you're a consultant, or you run a company, folks who are really wanting to elevate their brand, their business, and their credibility. And the conventional ways of doing that as using conventional media have shifted. We've actually seen an erosion of conventional media, especially in this country here in Canada, where I live, for example. Our local paper is a weekly paper, and it's very, very small. But even just up the road in a city of 150,000 people, our news coverage, for example, has eroded as well. So, and the number of stations, conventional radio and television stations, have also shrank over the years. So when that happens, people turn to sources like podcasts or YouTube for their, not just their news and their information, but also for the other things that they're looking to either learn about or also get their entertainment from as well. So I wanted to share with you today, especially if you raised your hand and you said, yeah, guesting is something that I really want to look at today. I want to share with you some really valuable tools that I think will help you as you're getting on that journey today. If being a host of your own podcast sounds like a big leap, I understand that. We have some people who have taken that leap and some who are taking that leap. Tolani, it's great to see you here. She's in the process of taking that leap right now. But certainly if you're not ready for that, or if you're looking to get more exposure, then guesting is certainly a great on-ramp for that. It's a very gentle way into the podcasting space. It still allows you to build your brand, your visibility, to build your credibility, to get more leads, to get more people in your funnel, a number of things as well. There's that transference of trust. This is why guesting I find works really, really well, is when you are transferring that trust, and you're getting that trust by borrowing somebody else's platform, right? I've had a number of people come on my podcast. It's somebody else's audience. Yes, it's somebody else's platform. It's someone else's consistency. It's someone else's credibility. It's someone else's network that allows you to get into that network and share your message. No, you do need to make sure you have a clear, concise message. But once you have that, it gives the opportunity for you to get more visibility, to gain more leads, to elevate that credibility and that authority as you become known as the guest expert. Whether it's because, you know what, it's time, you've recognized in your business it's time to do that, or you've done something in your business and you think, yes, I need to get on more podcasts because I've written a book. I've created a program, brand new program or a brand new course that is, really needing to get more traction. And the best way to do that is to get on podcasts. The other nice thing about guesting is a lot of people think, and raise your hand if you felt this way, I've been on the podcast and it's a one and done. Anybody thought that? Well, as we know, it's not one and done, because once you have that podcast, and a lot of podcast hosts are very much doing this and receptive to allowing you to do this as well, it becomes a content engine. It allows you to create clips, do more social posts, ideas for newsletters, more talking points when you're on the stage, whatever it is. We have some members here from CAPS, for example, who can leverage this as very valuable content when you're on the physical stage. Here's the key, though, when you're looking at podcast guesting as a way to elevate your brand, your business, and your credibility into 2026, is it should be something that you just don't do for the sake of doing it. It should be done with strategy in mind. Just like the types of strategies that you would apply to your business, it should also apply to your podcast guesting. So for example, your pitches should be personalized, shouldn't be spammy or templated with a, hey, sir, I'd love to be on your show. And trust me, I've gotten pitches like that for my podcast. So there should definitely be a strategic approach to that. We should be getting on the shows that are going to allow you to be in the right lane. So the right shows, the right audience, the right angle. Now, of course, you need to come prepared. You need to have a story. You need to have some messaging. You need to have a solution to a problem, if that's the type of show, or if it's to position your business. But you need to be able to have those talking points. You need to be able to also provide a call to action at the end. One of the things that we've explored at Podcast Solutions Made Simple is this whole concept of it's one thing to have a call to action that is very simple. That's like, contact me if you'd like more information. But how many times do you think, and you can raise your hand or you can put it in the chat, how many times do you think when you just simply say on a podcast, and if you'd like more information, reach out to me, how many times do you think that really happens? Any guesses? Katrina says 0. Pretty much that's the answer. It's pretty rare that you get a maybe once, maybe twice, maybe once a month. No, it's almost 0. So you need that strategic call to action that allows, if you've provided an amazing solution for the listener on that show, whether it's your show or whether you're guesting, by the way, but let's talk about you as a guest. If you've provided an amazing solution to somebody's problem and then you say, just reach out. Nobody's going to reach out. They're not going to do that. If you have a strategy for them to move the needle forward even more, that's going to make a huge difference. So think about that. It's all about building authority. It's not about the downloads either. That's the other thing. A lot of people say, well, I only want to be on shows where we know there's 50,000 downloads or at least 10,000 listeners. Some of the best shows I've been on are the ones that have had smaller audiences. Believe it or not. One of the first shows I was on ages ago was actually with my coach. We launched her show a few years back, 2021 actually. Hard to believe it was that long ago. And her show at the time didn't have a massive audience. If she got 100 downloads in her first week to 10 days, she was doing fairly well. Well, those 100 downloads for her meant it would really provide a good steady flow of leads for her. And if she got 1 or 2 clients or 3 clients a year out of that, and a client to her is worth about $20,000 to $30,000, it was definitely worth her investment. But moreover, I got more traction from that because she had such a personalized message and such a tight, concise audience. So it's not about the downloads. It's about chasing the right conversations. Okay. It's an opportunity to test your message. It's an opportunity to discover where your stories land as well. You can refine your signature framework. You get to build confidence behind the mic when you're doing all of this. It does become easier as you go. So if you're thinking guesting, sounds like a lot, it does become definitely easier as you go. So here's what I want you to think about as you get set to be a guest on podcasts, if that's the goal you're looking for 2026. Think of some topics that you can cover. Pick two to three themes that you can speak about very clearly. Think about some of the stories that are attached to this. Now, if you're already a speaker, you probably already have some strategies for how to do this already. But if you're not really speaking a lot, think about some topics and then think about, okay, what are some of the stories that connect quite nicely? Think of a call to action that is of value to the type of client or prospect that you want to get in front of. Nothing too salesy. It's not about pitching. It's about having that lead magnet or that call to action that is bringing people into you to find out more about you, whether it's even at some point to book a discovery call. What is that thing that you're bringing people in for? Okay. And then have a follow-up system to that. Check in with not only the host, but also check in to, if you have had some leads, check in with them too. So I hope this has been helpful. I know it's been a very quick overview, but podcast guesting, we've discovered, is a very viable space for you to get some traction off the bat. And who knows, after guesting for 6 months or 8 months or a year, you might find that you're ready to do your own show. And if you are, then you already have a lot of experience in the podcasting space. You've sort of paved the way and made it a little easier for yourself. Any quick questions or thoughts on that? David has 17 downloads. David, I want to jump on your show just for fun, if for no other reason. 17 downloads or 17 guests?
Oh, no, I've had about 120 guests, but I don't really I did it as a hobby.
Right.
So I kind of there was no strategy behind it. George, don't roll your eyes. But it really was just for fun, and it kind of took off, and I never invited anybody. They just kind of sign up, and I've had them uploaded once a week right up till the end of May this year. So, but there's not a lot of people, not a lot of downloads. My measures of success are that my guest has a good experience. I have a good experience. I learned something about what my guest is passionate about, because just an audio conversation about that. I learn about a guest and learn about myself. So by those metrics, everyone's been a success. But again, there was no strategy behind it. It was just, I figured it's never too late to try something new.
Yep. And you've done a really good job with it, David. And I know that you and I are due for a conversation to explore some of those strategies to build it even bigger than, and you've done some great shows. I've seen some of the episodes. So, but definitely, Carl, I'm happy to be on your show. Carl,
you've seen some of my episodes. They're audio only.
Seen as in heard, seen, listened. Sorry, I've seen, listened. That's how it's like I saw you on, no, you didn't. You heard me. Right. I would, every now and again when I worked in radio, people say, I saw you on the radio. No, you didn't see me. You heard me, but you didn't see me. But yes, you're right. Thank you, David. Yes. Heard. As in I saw your episodes and I listened to them. Anyhow, thank you for sharing. Okay, let's get to our first speaker. And by the way, if anything has resonated with you about best guesting, I'm going to drop my information and my links as well to connect with me, to have a strategy call with me, to dive in a little bit more to find out about podcast guesting and if it's a fit for you. And we can certainly explore that as we go. So our first guest today.
Carl, photo time?
Oh yeah, sure. Hang on.
I'm just.
Oh yeah, I did say.
I can randomly do it, and everybody could be mouth.
Yes, I did say do that. Okay, so if you can come on camera, please come on camera so we can take a photo. If you're okay with us taking a photo, come on camera. Marin, thanks for coming on camera. Marin, Talani, are you able to come on camera? Talani, are you able to come on camera?
Yep, I am turning it on right now.
Okay, cool, awesome. Otherwise, it's just going to be a little picture of you. But anyways, this is great. Thank you so much, Bernie. Whenever you're ready, everybody smile and give their biggest. Bernie, it's up to you, though.
Yeah, no problem. I'm just loading up Snagit, and there we go. I got the right button now, finally. And I'll do one more. This time you'll know to look straight ahead. There we go. Done.
Awesome. All right. Fantastic. I'm going to take it off gallery view, put us back on speaker view, and introduce you to our first speaker, who is no stranger to the world of speaking because he is an executive speech coach. And we're so glad that he has taken time out of his day to join us today to share his wisdom about podcasting and more or less being a podcast host, not just any podcast host, but a podcast host that has the right habits. And that means what to do before, what to do during, and what to do after the mic goes live. So please help me welcome our first speaker with Habits of Best Podcasters, what to do before, during, and after the mic goes live, George Torok. George, I can't hear you. Your mic is on mute. I'm like, where is he?
Silly me.
That's okay.
That's a good reminder that even when you've got experience, you still make mistakes and things go wrong. And you need a lot of patience and sense of humor with this technology. Carl, glad to be here with you and the folks. Did you know that Carl and I went to the same high school? It was in different decades, of course. And when I was in high school, I wanted to be popular with the girls, naturally. And I noticed that the football players were all popular. So I thought, well, I'll join the football team and that'll make everything right for me. At the first football practice, the coach calls me over and he says, "Son, the track team needs good men like you." Yep, I got cut. So I went over to the track team and I found out that I wasn't fast running and I didn't like the jumping thing. So track and field wasn't for me. Then I discovered the cross-country team where you didn't have to run fast, you just have to run long. And the big plus for me was that the cross-country team accepted everyone. So I made the team. And over the years, we ran around the streets of the city. And I remember preparing for the first race, 6-mile race. And we trained for it, and I was ready for it. And the day of the race, I dropped out halfway through. I didn't finish the race. I don't know why. I just wasn't all in. I wasn't able to finish. However, I did stick with running, and I did, over the years, finish other races, and eventually, 2 decades later, I completed my first marathon. And when you run a marathon, running a marathon is simple, but it's not easy. First of all, you need to put in the training. And the day of the race, when you're running the marathon, you need to have a simple habit in mind. And the habit is this. First, you move your left foot. And then, wait for it, you move the right foot. Simple, right? But not easy because you need to do it 30,000 times. And I have completed several marathons over the years and don't do that anymore, don't want that much pain. But hosting a podcast over the long term is more like running a marathon than running a sprint. You don't sprint through your podcast. If you want to maintain the podcast, you need to have a system, you need to develop the habits, and you need to follow a step-by-step process so that you make it easier for yourself. And like everything else, you start with the why and your values. And I'll show you what I'm doing with my podcast to give you ideas. You don't have to do it my way. This is just one way. It's working for me right now, most of the time. So I look at the podcast as a series of 3 types of relationships. The first relationship is with your audience. The second relationship is with your guest. And the third relationship, the most important one, is the relationship you have with yourself. Let's take a look at the audience relationship. For me, my audience, the relationship they can have with me is they can trust me to deliver consistent value in terms of diverse perspectives from worldwide experts on the topic of communication in business. That's the theme, and that's what they can count on. They can trust me to do that. As Carl mentioned earlier, trust is key to have a successful podcast. 2, they can count on listening to engaging and fascinating conversations. The interviews I have are conversational. 3, they might, from time to time, receive special offers from the guests or even from me. They can count on that. And what do I want from this relationship? Well, I want them to listen regularly. Naturally, I encourage them. I want them to spread the news and ideally write positive reviews on Apple Podcasts. And by the way, here's a big tip. If you want to be a guest on a podcast, first listen to it and then write a review on Apple Podcasts. And then when you contact the host, tell them what you did, and that is the game changer, because that's what we want from listeners. The relationship that you have with your guests. My guests can count on a professional approach in terms of establishing this relationship of mutual respect. We respect each other in this relationship. They will receive clear communication about the details and the logistics of the interview and the publishing. I let them know up front what's going to happen and what's going to and when it's going to happen, so there's no confusing and there's less stress. They will appreciate the conversational style. And in fact, when I first meet with them, I offer them advice on how to make that more conversational. So I help them be successful in the interview. They can count on me promoting, and naturally, I expect them to reciprocate. That's part of the relationship, the quid pro quo. And here's a mistake that I've made with this relationship. And if I were to start over again, I'd start this from the beginning. I'd add the name of every guest to a database or CRM so that I can stay in touch and maintain the relationship over time. Mistake I made, something I'm going to start working on. It just got a lot of names to add into the database now. And 3, the most important relationship that you have is the one with yourself, because you're the one who's doing the work, putting in the effort, the time, and the money. So this is most important, because when you don't have a healthy relationship with yourself over the podcast, that's when you quit. That's when it ends. It's got nothing to do with other measures. It's when you just can't stand it anymore. That's when you quit. So what do you do to make it easier to stand and less stressful and more rewarding? Well, here's a mistake. People think that if you're motivated, if you've got passion, that's all you need. Nah, doesn't work. That's not enough. Passion helps you start, and passion helps you get over some of the bumps. When it comes to running a marathon, passion gets you to the starting line. Passion doesn't get you through those 26 miles. It's the left foot, right foot that gets you through that. When you have those conversations along that 26-mile run, conversations that tell you, man, this is stupid. How come you do such a thing? Everything hurts. But you keep going because you develop the habits, not passion. Passion doesn't get you going. And so, yes, it's great to have passion, but passion won't get you through the stressful times. That's why you need to create and follow systems and develop the habits. Habits keep you working when the passion fails. In fact, one of my favorite quotes from Muhammad Ali is when he was asked about how he became such a great fighter. And he said this. He said, I went to the gym on the days that I felt like it, and I went to the gym on the days that I didn't feel like it, because it was habit. And that's what you need to make with your podcast. I suggest that you write procedures and checklists for yourself. That's what I do. I have checklists for every stage of the process. And what that means for me is that I can be consistent. It also means that I don't have to keep asking myself, what do I do next? I just follow the procedures that I wrote. It reduces the energy and stress on me. I just have to follow the process. And yes, from time to time, I discover a new way to do it, and I update my procedure and my checklist. I suggest you do that. Update them as you go, learn from others, and you will thank yourself later, no question. And finally, the relationship that you have with yourself, as was pointed out earlier, enjoy the experiences and the people you interview. I do it because I learn from these guests. I have a stimulating conversation, and I'm providing the messaging to other people to help other people. And that's what I want to do. That's what I want to be remembered for. And yes, the listens will, in my case, have been anywhere from lows of 20 per episode to 600. That was an unusual one, but it is in that range. And that's not the true measure. Now, I follow an 8-step process, and I'll outline that for you. Again, use what works for you. This is what I'm using, and this has changed over time, and it will change again. The 8 steps. So there's a little bit more than just left foot, right foot, but there's 8 steps. So the 8 steps are this. 1, recruiting guests. 2, the initial chat with the guest. 3, research. 4, the interview. 5, the debrief. 6, produce and publish. 7, republish and promote. And 8, repurpose and leverage content. Let's go through these in more detail. The recruiting the guest part, there tend to be 3 ways that you get guests. This is where you reach out, you contact them directly, and this is especially true when you first start your podcast. You need to contact people. 2, they pitch to you. Once you become known, once you have a podcast running, you'll receive pitches from people who want to be a guest or agents who are booking people to be guests. And I get a flood of these almost every day. And I turn most of them down. Most of them I don't reply to. Some of them every once in a while I do reply. And here's the biggest reason that I turn them down. 1, they have no friggin' idea what my name is, what the name of the podcast is, or what the theme is. They just telling me how great they are. And I don't care how great you are. If that's what your viewpoint is, I know you're not going to promote the podcast after, because it's all about you. Now, the ones who come to me and say, hey, I listened to this episode, I enjoyed the conversation you had, and by the way, I left you a review, they're in. And the third way of recruiting guests is when you get an introduction. And this is a nice, warm way to start a relationship. When you get an introduction from someone who they know already, and it's a warm introduction, it's a great way to start the relationship. So that's the first step, recruiting guests. The second step is the initial chat. And I insist on having a chat with my guests before the interview. And the reason is, there's a number of reasons. 1, we get to meet each other, and there's no pressure on. We get to chat. We get to start the relationship. And this is usually 10 to 15 minutes, is typically what it is. We get acquainted. I get to check out their audio and video setup to see if it's acceptable, or if I can offer them advice on what they might do differently. They get to understand and become comfortable with me and my style. And some guests, and I don't know why I was surprised to learn, some guests are actually nervous about podcasting. And so they get a chance to get more comfortable. They know that I'm not going to throw surprises at them. I tell them what the conversation is going to be like. And I emphasize key points, and I tell them it's going to be conversational. And I advise them on how to make it feel more conversational. So I'm giving them advice. I'm helping them succeed. That builds trust with them. So that's a good way to start the relationship. And then the next step is research on my part. And if I haven't already, it's time for me to look at their LinkedIn profile, check out their website. If they got a blog, look at the blog, read a couple posts or maybe an article. If they have a book, often they'll send me the PDF and I get a chance to read it or at least peruse it. Every once in a while, there's a great guest that actually sends me the hard copy book, which I prefer because that's how I like to read. And when I get it, I will read it. And I'll let them know that when we meet that I've read it, and I'll quote it. In fact, when we do the interview, I'll hold the book up on camera so people can see that I've got the book and I think of it. And while you're researching, think about, as you're preparing your mind, think about what you know about this particular topic that this guest is an expert in. What do you know and believe? And also think about what your audience might already know or believe, right or wrong, so that those are opportunities for where you might take the conversation with your questions. The fourth step is the interview itself. And before an interview, take time to get into the right mindset. Give yourself at least 15 minutes before the interview to calm yourself, think about the topic, think about the speaker, get everything else out of your mind, forget about whatever is going on in the world or in your life or in your finances or whatever it is. You had a fight with someone this morning, the traffic was terrible, the bank just bounced a check. Get all that out of your mind and just think about the topic and how you're going to help your audience. And yes, breathe and relax and drop your shoulders, get rid of the tension, move around before you get on. Now, when the guest is speaking, and this might sound silly, but listen to them. Listen to what they're saying instead of thinking about what your opinion is on this topic or what you can add. And as you're listening, what crumbs are they dropping for you that you can pick up and pursue? And so phrases that I've used are, well, Carl, you teased us with that suggestion. Tell us more about that. Give us more insight there. Or that's interesting. And how did you discover that? And how did that work for you the first time? And how many times did you have to do that before you got it right? So look for the crumbs that they've dropped and go with it. Treat your guest as the expert, and you're trying to get the expert value from them to your audience. Be the facilitator. Don't you think that you need to be the expert. Now, the time for you to be the expert is when you are a guest or perhaps when you do a solo show. So there's opportunity there. And yes, you might have something to add, but you don't have to add on every point that they make. It's not a matter of one-upmanship. Oh, I can do better than the guest. I'm smarter than the guest. Look at me, I'm so smart. No, that's not what's going to keep your listeners coming back. The fifth step is the debrief. Immediately after I finish the interview, I have a quick debrief with the guest. This might only last about 5 minutes. And I want to debrief them. I want to know what they feel like. The first thing we do is we record about a 60-second to 90-second promotional video message. I get them to record a message that I then use them promoting the show. They've made a message there. Then I ask them to recommend another fascinating guest and introduce us. So that's how I've made connections with people I might never meet, only because this person just had a good experience with me. Now they're feeling generous, and they are introducing me to fabulous guests. And I've had guests from 16 countries so far. Finally, I ask them this question. What do you suggest I might do to improve this process? How can I get better? And over the years, and it's been 5 years I've had the podcast, I have gotten gems from this question that have helped me improve one small part of my process. Most of the time, there are no suggestions. However, the fact that I asked this question shows that I respect them and their opinion, and I'm asking them to invest in me getting better by offering me how they can help me get better. So now the relationship builds again. Step number 6, produce and publish. I have outsourced both the editing and the production for both audio and video. Currently, I'm doing this myself with the aid of several AI tools. That includes Riverside, where I record. It also produces clips. Headliner, which creates audiograms. Opus Clips, which is another tool for creating video clips. Oh, and I use ChatGPT to pull out key parts and summarize it. So I've got posts for both when I publish the podcast itself on Beam, and when I publish on LinkedIn, I pull out quotes from the interview and I get ChatGPT to do that for me. Step 7, republish and promote. So I publish first in audio, and then a few months later, I republish the video, first on YouTube, and then pieces on other social media, mostly on LinkedIn, but also on Instagram, occasionally on Facebook. Step number 8. Now, here is the step that I still need to work on and get this better. But here's the opportunity. This is to repurpose and leverage the content. So you've got all this content. You've got good information. How can you use this? And I'm leaning on, and I've been playing with it. I'm using the AI tools to reuse this. And so some of the possibilities that I'm experimenting with right now is, how do I create a tips list from this podcast? A tips list that could be content, or it could be part of an offering that I have to my clients when I'm coaching or training, or a worksheet, or how can I make this part of a booklet that I use as a free bonus, or just, there's so much content there that I need to mine and leverage. It's huge. So, and people say, do you make money from your podcast? No, I don't, but there's all this content that has value that can help me make money. And with that, so that's the 8-step process. So with that, I'm going to close with this message and summarize. 1, write your procedures and checklists. 2, follow them habitually. Make it a habit. And 3, update them as needed. And now you can, I believe with what you've got here, you can maintain your podcast by first moving the left foot and then moving the right foot, and that will help you go the distance.
Awesome, George. Round of applause for George. George. Torok, thank you so much, George, for your message. Very, very great points there. Does anyone have any questions for George? We've got a few minutes before we're going to take a quick break. George, I've been on your show, and I do like the viability of the format, that, you know, how you approach it. It's definitely a very very valuable. I feel that as a host and a former broadcaster, I feel that I can fly a little bit differently, but still having a structure or a way in which you do things or systematically do things. I also have a team that works behind me on the back end doing the show, but having some kind of a system or a format, in getting to the final product, and also giving the guest a lot of love through the process as well. If you're having a guest, is very important. So, Peter, did you have a question? I saw your hand go up.
No, but I will make the comment that, George, your talk was full of golden nuggets, and I just wish that I was recording what was going on so that I could listen to it again. But thank you so much. Great talk.
Well, luckily,
Thank you.
Peter, we are recording, and you'll get the recording. So
Oh.
you'll get those nuggets and all of that information as well. So, yeah, George, I'm sorry, I may have cut you off there, but did you have any other comments for Peter?
No, thank you very much, Peter. Yes, and yeah, take the information and use it. Make it work for you.
David, did you have a question for George?
I do indeed. First of all, that was great, George. I did take lots of notes, and I'm not good at that. So I'm wondering where it's important to be consistent. For example, I know it's important to have, or I believe it's important to have a consistent schedule. So, whether it's every week, other week, whatever. But in terms of other consistency, so I've seen some podcasts that have a formula. So here's the 3 questions you ask every guest, right? And then there's others that it's a consistent length. And the reason I ask very selfishly is that mine, I just kind of follow the natural flow of the conversations. I range between 25, 55 minutes, depending upon how interesting the person is. But I don't have a specific formula. I just set it up as a conversation. So any comments around where the consistency is or isn't important would be really helpful.
David, and your audience, your best audience will get used to your format. So if they keep coming back, then they're happy with the variances. I try to aim for about time frame about 30 minutes.
Okay.
So and I've been on a 5-minute podcast. I've been on a 10-minute. I've been on a 60-minute podcast. So it's the audience gets used to it. Now, if it flips all over the place, the audience, if they keep coming back, they're used to that. And I have at times, I will have a solo podcast where I'm simply giving tips. Now, when you're giving a solo podcast, I think it needs to be shorter because there's only one voice. 2 voices are more interesting than one voice. So if it's only one voice, my solo shows run anywhere from 10, possibly 15, occasionally 20, but I try to keep it in that 10 to 15 minute. And so people can count on, oh, it's a solo show. It's going to be shorter today.
And those are all on the same podcast, George?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, that's
Yep.
helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Any other questions or any other thoughts for George? Anything?
I got a question.
I have one more.
Yeah, sure, David, go ahead.
I wasn't fast enough writing down the products you used, George. You talked about Riverside, Opus Clips, and there was a third one, the one that was in between those, but I didn't quite catch it.
Headliner.
Headliner, great.
Headliner is for creating audiograms.
Okay. I don't know what that is, but I'll find out.
Yeah, Headliner I find is one of the I've tried creating audiograms in Canva, for example, and it's a bit of a pig for creating audiograms. I find so Headliner is definitely really good for that, and there's some other really cool tools in Headliner as well, David, that you might find useful for your show.
What's an audiogram? Maybe I should just start with that.
George, I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, an audiogram is where you've got a fixed image and you add some audio to it. Now, even though it's only audio and a fixed image, it actually comes out as an MP3. It actually comes out as a video file. Now, typically, what people do on the image is they add a wavelength. So there's a wave moving, and you don't fill up the whole screen. You just put it in one corner, so they recognize it that, oh, there's audio here.
Great. Okay. Thanks very much. I'll look into that.
Cool.
Did somebody else have a question for George? Bernie, was that your voice I heard?
It was.
Okay. Sometimes I hear voices, so that's why I was checking.
Well, I'm right behind you, just talking to your left ear, on your shoulder. What I was using the script for a while, and I stopped using it because all of a sudden they changed their pricing plan, and the AI component was like, oh my gosh! But it was really handy. Riverside FM, I just started using it, and their pricing model is different. So you can create an audiogram because they'll create edits for you, and then you can take samples of going, oh, I like that one. Or while you're in it, you can snatch if you find that pearl. And then for me, I use both the video and audio because a moving image is a lot better than just a static one. Or if you have a soundbite, you try. It's the bells and whistles, right? The more, da 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 da, the more bling you have, it helps draw the attention. It doesn't have to be gaudy. You don't have to have large earrings on, but if that's your persona, then go for it. But it depends on the nature of your podcast. But that's how I'm leveraging it. And then I'll use AI. So I'll use different AI components, even for the artwork. I'll have 2 or 3 channels. I have IDEO.io. And then I also use another one called Poe, and it has different elements in there. So I can always do till I find something like, yeah, that works. Because whatever it comes up with is like, yeah. And then I'll go to Canva. So I kind of switch it between them. Find best of breed, and then go, there we go. My only thing that I have to mention is you can keep going forever. So at a certain point in time, cut your losses. So after 5 iterations, stop yeah.
David, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I hear what you do, George, and I heard what Bernie does, and like it all feels like and sounds like a lot of work. And so one of the things I wonder is, when do you do the work that you actually get paid to do? And I mean that quite seriously, because I see some people that are consumed. Maybe they use an AI bots and things like that, but on social media and podcasts and things like that. And I'm thinking, well, you're not making money actually doing that. When do you do the work that you make money? So I'm kind of wondering how you balance the work that you do for your podcast and the work that you do as a speaking coach or whatever else that you may happen to do.
And so there's lots of activity when you run certainly a speaking business, coaching business. There's lots of activity of what you must do that doesn't make you money right now. So when you're not coaching or when you're not speaking, you're not making money, but you still need to write, you still need to promote, you still need to travel to gigs if you've got speaking gigs. You still need to maybe attend networking events that you don't get paid for attending. So you've got all that. So it's a matter of scheduling. And that's why when it comes to the podcast, the systems are so important. And yes, and so I look at my week and I see what I need to schedule. And sometimes I have a busy week or I fall out of habit and I don't have a new podcast. So I've got over 200 episodes. So I will repeat an episode from 3 years ago as long as I publish.
Great. Yeah, that's a very good point, George. And I'll even piggyback that and say when I did production, I don't do it now because I have a team that does it for me, and that's what we do. So if you're that kind of a busy person, you outsource it, right? That's one of the things you do at the appropriate time, right? You might not be ready to outsource right now, but certainly at the appropriate time, you can do that. But what I used to do is I would schedule. So, for example, I think it was Wednesdays and Fridays between 2 and 5 were my editing days. And I don't know what my podcast interview days were. I don't remember, but those I know were my editing days. So I had those 6-hour chunks of time where it was dedicated solely to editing and doing any cleanup of shows that needed to get cleaned up. So,
yeah. And I reserve certain times, certain days for podcast work. I only interview on Mondays and Tuesdays. I only talk to new guests on Monday, Tuesday, possibly Friday. But yes, so I have the times. And at one point, when I was outsourcing both the audio and the video production, I was using a company in the Philippines called Pod Machine, and they did a decent job. They did a good job. There's no question. And they did all that editing for me.
Any other questions for George? Another big hand for George. George, thank you so much. Don't forget, if you haven't dropped your information in the chat or any resources that you'd like to share with people, don't hesitate to put them there so people can connect with you after today. We're going to take a break for 12 minutes. So we're going to come back at 10 after 12. 10 after the hour, depending on where you are in the world. It might not be 10 after 12, but 10 past the hour, and then we'll continue with some more comments and our next speaker, Max Frambach. So let's give ourselves some time, and we'll be back at 10 after 12. I'm going to stop the recording, and we'll see you back here shortly. All right, we are back, and welcome back after our break, and thank you once again to George Torok. A lot of great value and great conversation as well about not just podcast hosting, but also some of the tools that George is employing. And I noticed that Ptolemy in the chat said outsourcing is great, and yes, it is great when you are ready to outsource. We certainly at Podcast Solutions Made Simple are here to help you navigate through that conversation and help you take that step. So before we introduce our next speaker, I wanted to share some information with you about, there are so many things in my brain and regarding podcasting, and I originally was going to do a deep dive as to where, gazing into my crystal ball, I think that the podcast world is heading in 2026, but I've been wrong before. So it's not about who's right and who's wrong. It's about just perceptionally where I think we're heading based on some of where we've been. And I think that where we've been is, for the last 20 years or so, podcasting has been done mostly in a silo. You're doing your own show, you're bringing in guests, maybe you have a co-host, but for the most part, you're doing it by yourself. And as we found out that, certainly with George, indicated this with part of what he was talking about, was there is some time. Like, you have to mark things on your calendar, and it does take time to record the episodes. It takes time to edit and promote and do all of those things. And there's also costs associated with it, as Bernie indicated when he was sharing that, Descript has raised their prices, so he's looking at other alternatives. Those are two of the main barriers, by the way, why people don't get into the podcasting space, is time and money. What's my investment going to be? And it might take a while for you to get that ROI, but then what's the time commitment to doing this? And if I have to do some of the work myself, that's even a greater time commitment. So we introduced something last year that I want to share with you, and I'll just quickly talk about it and some of the benefits that might be of value to you. Is this whole concept of tearing down the silos, and rather than trying to do it all yourself, either doing a joint venture with somebody. And we've talked about joint ventures on this particular in the Alliance before. We had Mark Mawhinney on, I think 3 or 4 alliances ago, talking about the strategy that he employs. But one of the strategies that works well, especially when you're talking about leveraging time more efficiently and helping to not bring in revenue, but really managing that a little bit more efficiently as well, is something called the podcast co-op. And that's where you have a podcast that is not just one person or even 2 co-hosts sharing the platform. It's multiple people. It could be could be 4, could be 5, could be 8, could be 10 people who are sharing on the platform. And what does that do? What does that look like? And by the way, podcast co-ops are great if you're in a particular field. I'll take real estate as the example. In real estate, it's not just about investors. You might have people who are real estate investors, yes, but you might have lenders, you might have lawyers, you might have land developers, property managers. You may also have realtors. You may have folks who are on the building side of things, who have something of value to share to an audience, but really would benefit from working together on a show as opposed to trying to do it themselves. So some of the mistakes that people make when they're looking at a co-op is okay, we've got a couple of people together, let's just hit record and see where we go. No, you still need to employ a strategy if this is a route you want to take. You need to know who's the quarterback. There should be, there doesn't necessarily have to be, but there should be decided fairly early on when you're strategizing the show. Should figure out who's going to be the main point person. And by the way, when we're working with people on co-ops, it's not me. It might be me at the beginning, but it's certainly not from a long-term perspective. There should be one person who's sort of driving the bus, as it were, someone who's taking that leadership role for the show. And it doesn't necessarily mean they need to be the overarching host. They might be a host once or twice a month, and maybe they're sharing the hosting duties, but they're still the in-charge person of the show overall. And then being very clear on what the commitment is for people. So the way we've designed our co-ops, and we're looking at launching our first one, we've had a lot of conversations with some great people over the last 6 months about it. Finally seeing this come to fruition, where we're launching likely our first podcast co-op in the early part of spring. Early to mid-spring, but we're seeing people who are coming at it from can you commit to that 10 hours a month to record that one episode? And then can you, commit to also being part of the promotional machine or the marketing machine, as it were? Because that's the other thing, because there are some really cool things that happen when you are working on a podcast co-op or project like that together. So we should take like-minded partners, people who are in a particular industry or have some type of vested interest in a particular topic or industry or something like that. Works well with networking groups as well, who are looking to share a platform. Professionally produced, again, if you're investing in this, not only your time, but a little bit of revenue. You probably want it to be professionally produced, and you can get that when you are sharing in the revenue piece as well. Strategy first always. Audio branding should be something that's a part of it as well. And then the marketing piece, your podcast co-op becomes a marketing machine because multiple people are sharing on their platforms, not just you sharing in your own pipeline, but multiple people sharing on their various platforms and to their email lists. Hey, I'm on the show. I'm a part of the show. Okay. So if that's something that is of interest to you and you're learning a little bit more about the podcast co-op and how that could look either for your community or for your own business, if you have an idea of something that could take, more than just you and a co-host, maybe it's a few other people, then we'd love to have a conversation with you, because I really believe that this era of going solo or working just with a co-host, I think we're seeing that not completely disappear, but we're seeing content creators getting a little bit more creative with how they're delivering their content for podcasts, which is why it's a great lead into our next speaker, by the way. So I'm going to make sure I put my information in the chat momentarily. I have opened up some extra time on my calendar if you do want to book some time to do more of a strategy session with me. Totally complimentary, by the way, but I'll put that information in the chat so you can book some time with me, whether it's a podcast co-op, whether it's a podcast guesting opportunity, or whatever it is. We can certainly help you in that area. But collaboratively working together and working on different kinds of projects, I think we're going to be seeing more of that in the podcasting space. And we're already seeing it, but this sitting in a room or even in a studio by yourself, that's starting to shift. And we're starting to see more people, for example, doing live podcasting, not necessarily just live streaming, but live on location. So I met Max Frambach. What is it, Max? 6 months ago? Something
It's
like
about 6
that.
months ago, yeah.
Max hails from The Hague and is a very, very creative individual and has a lot of insights when it comes to not just content creation, but how do you take this thing called a podcast, which generally is a pre-recorded thing, and you're sitting in the studio and you're putting your content out there. How can you take what you're already doing and maybe add another element to it? And that's maybe live on location. Maybe it's for an anniversary show. Paul, I'm thinking about our March. Maybe there's a live show to be had in the not too distant future for that, as we celebrate not only the show but what that show means. So I'm going to turn it over to Max because he, I know, has some great insights on live podcasting tips and tricks, a little bit of a litmus test for where we are now and what we can expect as we dive more into live podcasting. Max, let's give a big warm welcome to Max.
Woohoo. Thank you. Yes, so thank you for the introduction. So my name is Max. Max Frambach. I'm from the Netherlands.
Max, I'm going to stop you right there. Because I think your earbuds, your mic is not the selected audio. I think it's your earbuds.
I'll have a look. Usually they flip over in the... Yeah. Let me.
Mine do that all the time. Talk.
Is it better?
Oh, much better. Max.
Much better.
Max, I'll
Look
put
at
it back
that.
over to you. Max Frambach, ladies and gentlemen. Woo!
Thank you. Yeah, every single time when you take them out and you put them back in, and Zoom tends to then, without notifying you, switch the audio source. So my name is Max. I'm from The Hague, the Netherlands. So where it is, believe it's 2:30 there now. Here it is 6:30. 6 hour difference. But I love to work late. I think that if you're working in the creative space, it's not uncommon for me to work until 3 or 4 a.m. So a bit more of a background. I started in media productions through marketing. So when I was younger, when I was still studying, I did a bachelor's in online culture and a master's in media and creative industries. While I was doing my bachelor's, I was organizing a lot of events because I noticed that a lot of students, they were not really connecting to the city. I'm from Tilburg, which is a city in the south of the Netherlands, and I was raised quite international. My father grew up in South Africa, so we weren't the typical Dutch family that was very much Dutch oriented. I know that we're very international, whether you look at our history or currently with our economics, how we have a lot of international large corporations settled in the Netherlands. But the Dutch families, they tend to, we have Dutch friends, and our real circle of friends is very small, and it's difficult to, we're notorious difficult to become friends with. But because I didn't have that, and I grew up in the city and I studied in the city in which I grew up, I started noticing that for the international community of students, there was a very difficult connection to the city. There was one international student association, and that's where all the international students went to. There were all these cool places to explore and to know, but they just weren't getting to know them. So I started to see, how can I get these students in this bubble to engage with these locations. Hang on, this will make sense later. So I started doing more event marketing, and I started organizing a lot of things. That led me to start working for a music studio in the area of Zoetermeer, Sweet Lake City, as we call it in Dutch. It's one of the cities you don't necessarily want to visit. And I started doing a lot of promotional material. And there I rolled into really doing photography and videography, and that rolled into doing podcasts. So what I noticed early on is that the experience in real environments is very important to a lot of people. You get to experience a lot of different, whether it be cultural events, sporting events. People love to go out and experience things. To immediately go sort of give you an idea of how I want to proceed with this talk, I do have points that I want to touch upon, but where George actually gave a lot of hands-on tips, for me, it's more a conversation about how you can also use live podcasting. So, what did I notice? When I started going into podcasting, it is important that you know what is the service you want to provide as a company. So when I started looking around, I noticed, everyone's saying that the podcasting market is already very saturated. There are already so many podcasts, already so many podcast studios. So then you have to ask yourself the question, how are you going to be difficult? And you have to look what are demands in the market. One of the demands in the market that I noticed is that a lot of podcasts had difficulty reaching their audience. And why did they have difficulties reaching their audience? It is because a lot of people perceive that the online environment in which we throw these podcasts is already crowded. When it's not crowded, is very vast. So it's very difficult to find your audience unless you very well define who they are and you can utilize marketing tools to find them. So how are you going to combat that? So then I started being a bit more creative, and I started thinking, okay, I think that you can try to get the audience to come to you, or you can try to put the podcast in the space for the audience. So I have a few examples. I would like to first show a podcast that I did on location. This was for a cultural organization. So this organization, what they do is they focus on youth. So they have a lot of different segments in which they help youth grow, whether it is through music, sporting events. And let me quickly see if I can share it. Let me click share. Yeah, there it is. Desktop share. I don't know if you will have audio with it, but that is not necessarily important. I will quickly just walk you through what I did. So this organization, what they did is they had a spring event where they invited a whole lot of their partners. As a big organization, they have a lot of partner organizations such as the municipality or other youth organizations that they collaborate with. What we notice is that there's often a element in which people speak, but usually this knowledge is then lost, it is not captured. And when we're looking at digital audiences, we see that the TEDx formats have reduced in popularity, but we see a big growth when it comes to podcasting. Fun fact, the European market is currently valued at 750 million, but in 2033, it is estimated that it will reach a market value of 7.7 billion. So you can imagine how much that market will grow over the upcoming years. So, can you hear it by any chance? There is some audio.
So you have to share your audio as well. So when you
Okay.
share your screen, there should be a share audio button there.
Yeah, the audio is not really important. I'll just
Okay.
then walk you through it. It was more that. So, what we did is we had the host, and she had invited a total of 3 guests, standard podcast setup. But what we did is we rerouted the audio that came in through the microphones. We had it go through the Rodecaster Pro and then send out over speakers to the audience. Audience sitting here off screen. Let me see. I did have a photo which I wanted to share, but I think that wasn't shared to my phone or to my laptop. And so we had a total of about 100 people that you can't see, but they were seeing exactly what the camera is seeing now. They were seeing these 4 people, and they could understand them very well because the audio from these microphones was rerouted to speakers. There are some technical aspects that you then need to think about because the audio or the sound produced by the speakers should be sent out away from the microphones. Luckily, we also have digital tools such as AI that can clean up a little bit of that. So the little bit of noise that was coming back, luckily, was taken out. And this is mainly what I focus on. So let me see if then through the use of multiple cameras, so then we would have the different angles for the speakers. Now, why is this sort of podcasting becoming more and more important? That has to do with this. With the rise of AI, there are certain issues that the audience, the digital audience, is experiencing. One of the key changes coming in the new age is the trust that people can have in what they see online. With that, we have the crisis of trust. We have digital content made by a generative AI, apologies. And what we see is that a lot of the Gen Z and the newer audiences, they don't really know what they can trust online anymore. So how can we as podcasters sort of penetrate through that barrier of trust? We can start placing our podcasts in environments where our audience is going. By the way, for who wants these articles, I'll share them with you. Over the time that I've been doing this, I've had a lot of very exciting responses. This is a project that we've done with a local football club where they actually wanted to have podcasting introduced to young kids. They had set up a location where I could make a sort of small podcast studio. And I'll quickly play that clip. It's a setup where 5 people could actually participate and join the conversation. So why do I think, let me make that small and let me stop sharing that for a bit. So why do I think that this is sort of where the market will be heading? I've already touched upon it briefly. The market for podcasting is becoming more saturated. It will be growing by the estimates that I've currently researched. So we need to find ways to engage with these audiences. One of the things that we've seen over recent times is the increase of the experience market. We see that people don't necessarily just want to buy products anymore. When they go out, they want to have certain experiences. As podcasters, we can provide an additional experiences within the real world. For example, very nice example actually by Carl, he gave away a few books. Bookstores were thought to be dead. Amazon had so greatly reduced the need for bookstores, and the amount of online sales of these goods had increased by so much that bookstores were deemed to be done. But because of the experience that bookstores provide, they have now accumulated a strong audience for the product that they sell. Now, I don't need to tell you that books are an incredible good corner of content for podcasts. You can talk about books, you can review books. There are so many ways that you can engage with this audience. So if you are someone making podcasts about books, whether reviewing or whether reading or discussing trends, it is very interesting to partner up with these bookstores, not just to invite them to your studio, but to actually go to these bookstores and have podcasts recorded on location, not just to talk with each other, but also have immediate haptic feedback from your audience. Because you can immediately feel the room and you can invite them into the conversation. And that is one thing that audiences do really like about podcasts. They like to have a sort of feeling that they are engaging with the speaker. And by taking that out of your studio and into real life, you are allowing that to flourish. You don't have to do this continuously. So to take the bookstore example, if you have a podcast discussing trends in books, you don't have to only do this on location, but these on location moments with a live audience are great moments to reach out to people that might not actually have found your podcast because you have to battle the algorithm. You have to battle the space digitally. You have to find these people. So instead of putting so much effort and resources into finding these people online, it is way easier to give an already existing piece of the world an additional experience. A bookstore, if for them free of charge, will be so excited to have a podcast hosted in their location, whether it is at a book signing or at the launch of a new book, or just because they like what you do. It is a very interesting moment to find that key audience that normally digitally you pay so much money to reach, to have them in that place. Now, of course, there are other benefits to that because you're entering a collaboration that we've touched upon earlier. Two is more than one. So you're not just benefiting off of the space, but you're also benefiting off of their audience, increasing, therefore, your experience. If you do this repeatedly, you can find, let's say you do this, you have 4 episodes a month, so a weekly podcast, but every 2 months you have one day where you record. It could be as little as 1 podcast episode. Ideally 3, because then you have some more content to go. But even if you only have 1 podcast episode recorded live on location, you can create that routine that we talked about before with this live audience, and therefore create an even more dedicated audience that has the opportunity to engage not only with your content, but also with your personality. So, with that said, I have a few more, some nuggets of information, But I think this is also something that I really wanted to share because I've touched upon it briefly when it comes to the erosion of digital trust. And when it comes to podcasting, I think this is a very good example of where we can expect it to go. So I'll quickly share this, and then I can say share sound. There we go. I need to put in my password quickly. I have to do it.
In today's video, I want to show you how you can turn any script, topic, or even product you have into an AI podcast with custom AI video avatars. You can make small podcast clips like these, or even entire video podcast episodes in landscape and vertical format. You can share them on social media, you can make money with them, or you can even use them on your landing page or as an organic looking ad to promote a product. The quality.
Did we hear what they said by any chance? I don't know if the audio came through. Yeah. So what we see is that we have people that do podcasting for the love of podcasting that say, I think that this is a good mean to either share valuable information or to create valuable content, whether it be entertainment or else. But we also have people that utilize it purely to sell products, which will further erode the trust that we have in what we consume online. So I have a LinkedIn post that I can share with who's interested, but it talks about Mark Cuban referencing the Milli Vanilli effect, where because before the playbacking was so detrimentous because we had this, it had to be real, and if it wasn't real, it was rejected. But we're moving towards a place where the digital space will be so flooded with things that we don't know whether they are real or not, that we will start rejecting most of it by default. Meaning that over time, real experiences in the real life will become more valuable. Personally, how I put that forward with my business is that I will focus mainly on trade shows, actually. So the business aspect is one of the parts, at least in Europe, where podcasting is not penetrating the market very far. We see that most podcasts revolve around entertainment. So if you have entertainment podcasts and you're working with influencers, their audience, they will love to meet and greet with them. But if you're looking at trade shows are, for instance, they're centered as experiences. It is for people to go there, to shake hands, and to meet each other. And that will be, in my eyes, the future value of larger podcasts. Podcasts that do want to, or that have the ability, because they're focusing on perhaps a smaller market, such as one country or one region, to engage with their audiences in that specific sphere. You can also turn it into a roadshow. So you can also, Canada is a vast country. The Netherlands is very small. So what you could do is, if you have a podcast, you can have it travel from one side of the country to the other if you have the means to do so. This is, of course, something that if you're doing it on your own, there is a certain financial involvement with that. But that is also why I highlighted before that if, take again the example of the bookstore, you can find within your area places that your podcast connects to, and see if you can engage with their audiences there locally. That is mainly what I wanted to talk about. There is, of course, a lot of specifics that, for instance, if you want to do podcasting on location, I've seen a lot of people sell it as if it is very difficult and you need a lot of specialized gear, and oh, if you don't have a whole sound rack. I've so far been doing it with my Rodecaster Pro, And with my cameras, I do have a setup of 3 red Komodos, so it is a bit more specialized equipment, but it is very much doable. You don't need a whole sound team. I've set up every single one of my live location podcasts as a one-man band. It helps if you have more people, of course, that does help. But go and find those moments and those places where you can connect to brands, which in return will bring additional value to your podcast. Is there anyone actually that is interested in taking their podcast to the physical space? And perhaps if they have any questions with that, would they like to ask them?
All right. First off, congratulations to Max, and thank you, Max, for sharing that valuable information. I don't know where the congratulations came from, but all your success, I guess, and all the things that you're doing. Yeah. Are there any questions for Max? I have one quick comment, and it actually leads to one of our speakers into our next Alliance meeting. His name's Neil Carroll, and he's an expert when it comes to video and production and the power of video. Anyways, Neil will be talking about, or one of the things that I know that Neil has created, and I'm hoping he's going to talk about this, is he's created studio in a box, basically, where you can rent a studio. I think right now they're for rent, but I think if I understand Neil correctly, and I'm paraphrasing, that he's going to be creating something that eventually will be for purchase, where you literally have an equipment case or like a briefcase, and you literally open it up. There's your microphones, there's your cameras, everything you need, and away you go. And your lights, it's all there in a box. So to Max's point, it doesn't need to be an expensive endeavor. It can be if you'd like it to be, but it certainly doesn't need to be something that you break the bank just to do live on, shows live on location. So, Bernie, you have a question for Max. Take it away.
Hold on. Sorry for that reticent cold saying, "Hey, I don't want to leave your throat yet." Because sometimes you're doing if you're doing a formal podcast and you have your desk, etc., and it's kind of a studio setup, it's one thing. But if you're kind of cruising around with a iPhone and that's kind of your medium, whether you're using Riverside FM to uplink it into the cloud, or you're just recording straight onto your phone, do you leverage the video? If you do a walk around, and you aim the camera at yourself and then you aim it at another person, mics, how do you configure that so that you capture the sound? Because I was at Hive and just doing that conversation, someone's recording it, and you hear the person talking. The person has a really soft tone voice, and all of a sudden I'm sitting there going, I got to hear the guy ordering his food behind me more than I'm going to hear her. And so how do you configure it so that you get the sound bite from the person? Background sound can be there, but you can kind of like dampen it down.
Yeah. So when it comes to walking around, I think that it requires a certain level of preparation that we also have when we do our own shows within our own location. As George also said, there's a lot of preparation that goes in before you have your guests enter your space. In this case, they're not entering our space, but we are entering their space. So what I ideally do is if it's a podcast where you're walking around, I would like to know where we're walking, at which time we're going to walk, so that in this case, if there is a canteen that we will be walking through, that we will not be walking through that at a time that is very busy. So make sure that you're doing it at times where where not around rush hour, let's say 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock, 1:30, where people are having lunch. And when you're doing a walk around, I think that in sense of live podcasting, there is, of course, the whole, depends on how big you want to make it, but when you're doing it with your iPhone, there will, of course, be certain difficulties which are easier to remove using more specialized equipment. So then we are going more towards the equipment side, because you are capped at the availability of the iPhone, and the iPhone is something that does take into account a lot of space, a lot of sound. And if the iPhone will introduce AI voice isolation, that will bring this forward, of course, a lot. So then you can actually use it more to hone in on specific places, which I think will be there soon because Shure, the microphone brand, they have released it's sort of a little, how do you call it? It's a plate almost, and it is a microphone that actually has 8 microphones in it, and it is able to detect who is speaking at which times, which is ideal for conference locations, conference tables, newsrooms, because it can isolate those different voices. So I think this technology will be there within a short period of time. But for now, most of it will be in the preparation phase. For me personally, I prefer sit-down talk shows because then it is more that you can actually let the audience know this is what we're gonna do. That's what you're gonna gain from it, and then you can also prepare better how you are going to reach the audience. Are you going to reach them via your own voice? So not to amplify the sound. Are you going to amplify the sound over speakers? Are you going to use silent disco headphones because then you can use the or the audio out from your Rodecaster or whichever hardware you're using and use that to a sender and receiver and have everyone wear silent disco headphones. So when I'm talking about live audience podcasting, I think it is more in a sit-down setting, unless you're a live streamer like I Show Speed, who walks around with a huge crowd around him, but then it is also very difficult to understand each other and hear each other. And then for the audio listeners later on, that won't be as pleasant to listen to. Does that solve it or answer it a bit?
Yeah, I think it also adds to the editing because if you're trying to start it out, if not live, but it's production based, and later on you go to do post production, ow, yeah.
Yeah, that is a big ow.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Great question, Bernie, and long answer from Max. But there's a lot of there's a lot of things that don't be sorry. There's a lot of things to consider, and there's an easy way. And when we've done, for example, just as a quick aside, and we're kind of like Max up to this point with the work that we've done, but there's a reason why there are studios out there. This is above and beyond what Max is talking about. There's a reason why there are studios, because live on location from certain venues requires you to think about, okay, when's the best time to record there? Do I have the right microphone? Are my cameras enough? Do I, can I do it with my phone? Is that okay? Lighting, all of those things that you need to consider. So there's many different components to think about as you're embarking onto this. And Max rather is a great resource for that. Katrina, you got a question for Max.
Yeah, it kind of ties back into what you were asking around like the portable podcasting in a box. So like links, I don't care if they're from Amazon or whatever, but you've mentioned some tools that I've not heard of. So I am like, okay, do you have like an Amazon link to that? Do you have like a web page that just has like, here are some of my portable tools I recommend for podcasters? Because some things like that just make it easy for us, especially when you're in this environment and you're talking about, hey, being mobile. It's like, okay, well, what kind of mic would you recommend? Just the basics. Here's intermediate, and here'd be like the full shebang kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Part of that was also my thinking is that it's a great way to actually make a little extra money as an affiliate marketer, but it also helps all of us find the tools that you're using and have some trust in what's out there. Because I like when I have somebody that I personally know that's reviewed it and said, hey, these actually work in these environments, as opposed to just randomly going on to a website and trying to figure out what I'm using. So I see all my ladies shaking their head like, so just throwing that out there for you. If you got that page or link or something you can share, or you can give to Carl.
I'll make an Amazon wish list.
Yes, please. That would be fantastic, and share it with us.
I will. I'll take tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm at an event tomorrow evening. I'll make sure that I'll make a list, and then I can send that to you, and I'll make it at different scales. Okay. I think that's also a very fun jump to sort of round my portion of it off, unless someone has a question. So I earlier mentioned that I'm moving towards also the trade shows, And to sort of give the scale at which you can do podcasting on location, I'm currently developing a mobile podcast studio. So where what Carl mentioned is a Pelican case. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it is a hard case that you can open, and then you have the microphones in it, and you have everything you need. I am currently in the process of designing a 7 by 6 meter studio with a panoramic glass wall to actually move to different trade shows. And one of the things that I did still also want to share, but I forgot, is that you can also look at, if you want to go into the public with podcasting, malls are a great place to create experiences. Try to find locations that are perhaps struggling, or that already, they say, yeah, we're doing okay, but we're always looking for extra things to try. So malls are a great place to engage audiences. They are great ways where you have the husbands that have to sit down because the wives are shopping clothes. And if you have a podcast there about old-time cars, and they're like, okay, we'll sit there for a second and we'll listen to it. There are great ways to scale up and down. And I've done podcasts where you're just sitting in a corner and you have 2 microphones, and you're trying to find where to put all the cables so that you don't see them. And they have the scale of a 6 by 7 or 7 by 6 meter studio that you are taking apart, and then you have to move with a truck to different places. Yeah, I can give you everything in between. The big studio, you can come to me. Carl and I have also talked about bringing it to Canada. So I'm always looking for contacts with locations for trade shows, trade show organizers, and ideally, usually if they have minimum of 6,000 visitors because of the costs that are involved with such a studio. But yeah, they're just to give you the scale of at which you can operate with on-location podcasting.
All right. Thanks again, Max, for all of your insights. Hand again for Max for sharing. Thank you so much, Max. And yes, Max, if you haven't put your contact information in the chat, feel free to put it in there, your LinkedIn connection and all the other things. And when you have that list, that wish list, if you have it in a form that I can share as a link, that'd be great. More than happy to share that with our participants today. It might be of some great value. So before I turn you loose, I have 3 minutes left. Hopefully this has been of great value for you for today. Who likes prizes? We need some stinking prizes. Yes, we do. Whose name am I going to pull out? And it is Katrina. Yay! Oh, hey, how about, I know you don't have either of these books, so I'll give you voices, because I know you have a powerful one, and you've had some very powerful women on your podcast raising their voice, so I think you'll really appreciate that. So let me pass that on to you, and I'll do one more. Yes, and it is David, who's not here, and I can't remember if he's got, so I have to find out what David has or hasn't won from us in the past, because I've got a copy of a book from a fellow colleague, Sam Dema, but I'll see what he has or hasn't won. But David Guthrow, if you're watching the recording, and I'll make sure you get this email anyways, David, you are one of our winners as well today. So thank you so much. With just a couple of minutes to spare, has this been, I'm going to put everyone in gallery view one more time, has this been of value for you today? Has it been beneficial? Fantastic. Thank you once again to George. Thank you so much also to Max, and thank you for being here. Our next Alliance meeting is coming up in April. We're just finalizing the date as we're checking with a couple of different speakers on their availability as well. So that'll be shared fairly soon as well in an email. So you can grab your ticket ahead of time, and we'll see you, if not before, you'll be getting the recording, but we'll definitely see you in April at our next Podcast Alliance meetup and Mastermind. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of winter and the rest of the day today.